closely at what's going on in the Gospel of Luke. So we've had a few readings from Luke now as we've entered this part of the year. And one of the things that Luke is really stressing to the community in which he's writing is what has been transformed about the way we are invited to understand the human relationship with God. He really wants to emphasize in many ways how Jesus has introduced a new way of understanding the relationship of the people who follow God to God. One of the ways this becomes clear this weekend is how we look at what's going on in this Old Testament reading and then look at what's going on in Luke. The setup here is that we have in both instances an invitation by the Holy One to be in relationship with Him, to be in relationship with God in the Old Testament, and an invitation to the people to be in relationship with Jesus in the New Testament. And in the Old Testament, as the way Samuel presents it to us, Samuel gives words to a God who is just frustrated. This prophet is basically saying, God doesn't know what to do with you anymore because He's ready to be sought. I am ready to be sought out by those who didn't even ask to find me. I am ready to be found by them, to be found by those who aren't even looking for me. And I'm standing around in every way in creation saying, here I am, here I am, find me, I'm right here, you don't have to look really hard. And yet, he's saying to these people, what are you doing? You're not paying any attention to this relationship, this invitation. You're running around the countryside, hanging out, with the Canaanites and doing all kinds of stuff, and not really having a sense of your identity as a people of faith with me in this particular relationship. You're out in the wilds and the gardens, it says, doing animal sacrifices to all kinds of gods. And I'm right here saying, dudes, have a relationship with me. I'm here for you. You remember all that stuff about Moses and the way I had to have a relationship with you in the desert? Because the Old Testament understanding, that ancient Israel understanding of how to have a relationship with God, was through the law that had been given to the people, right? And the contract was, God will be with you, but only if you keep the law. And keep it right. And if you mess it up, you have to really be sorry. And you have to be judged by the rabbis and people who were entitled to do that. And they may or may not let you be back in a relationship with the community of God. It was pretty conditional. But this is giving us a sense of what the people are missing in invitation. Now, Paul gives us a beautiful bridge in this epistle reading we have as he writes to the community in Galatia. And remember, once again, that the setting for that letter is informed by two things. Firstly, that the Christian community in Galatia refers to itself or thinks of itself as Jewish Christians. Jewish first, because that's the code they know and the tradition they know, and they value that identity. But they are accepting an innovation and a new understanding because they accept that Jesus is Messiah and has brought that new understanding rightfully so. So they're ready to make that transition. They are part of how we can inherit what we inherit because these people are boldly being willing to embrace a new understanding. How often does that happen in human history? Where people are willing to be opened up in their hearts to have a new understanding. The invitation isn't to say, we were wrong. The invitation is to say, we have something new to consider that we didn't have before. You can't blame people before Galileo who thought that the earth was the center of the universe. They simply didn't have all the information. Spiritually speaking, we are grateful and blessed to be able to have had, as those Jewish Christians did, the inheritance and heritage of even people who wanted to be in relationship with this God who is one God. Without them laying that foundation, we would not have that understanding. of being an Abrahamic people to the identity of being followers of Jesus. How much do we retain of the stuff we did? And the argument in the Council of Jerusalem that's going along while Paul is alive is exactly that. And as we spoke last time, if it's circumcision, that means that you're one of us in the community, then we're excluding half the population. We don't even have that option. Thank you. We don't even have that option. And the whole thing about Jesus is he's including everybody. He's teaching women as much as he's teaching men. He's inviting people who hate his guts as much as he's inviting people who love him already. He continues to invite everyone. That's something new. That's something new because the law is all about identifying who's excluded. That's the problem with the law. It is all about judging who is not acceptable before God. And here comes Jesus saying, there's no one. There's no one that's not acceptable and lovable. It's human beings that do that. We need to transcend the social values and the religious values that we can establish that do that exclusion. Because here's the crux of the thing in that Old Testament reading we got today, which is just like the Hebrews were challenged in their Canaanite environment by other options of gods and goddesses, and they were talking a lot about false idols, don't go after false idols. In this reading in the Old Testament, God is saying, you all are false worshipers. There are such things as false worshipers, people who think that they're getting it right, but they're so self-focused on it that when God says, hello, they say, we're holier than you. That's what he's saying in that Old Testament reading. You guys, I'm coming to you and you don't have anything to do with me because you're holier than me. And here comes Jesus saying, I am right here with you. I'm having a human life with you. I am in the dirt with you. And I am telling you, we can all have, and all are invited to have a relationship with God. And the invitation is there for all of you to gather to God and be gathered to God. And that really comes out in this gospel reading link. Because this guy, this demoniac, even using that word to apply to him, how that irritates me. Because this is made a judgment. Demoniac. It's not a good thing to be. So I'd rather think about him as the marginalized man. Because he's marginalized in every way possible. And all the symbols we have in the story about him show us that. First of all, he's naked. So he's naked. You don't get accepted easily to the pubs if you're going naked. He's already going to be excluded. Sorry, no shoes, no surface. And he also is hanging out with dead people. And he's hanging out with the tombs. He's not even among the living. He is dead. He gets more on with the dead than the living. And part of that is, in the Hebrew belief, that's a pretty contaminated place to live. It is very spiritually pure. So that's that. And then he's in the wild. Even the demons are so toxic in him that he is in the wild. And that's a scary place to be. And represents lots of scary stuff. So it's scary already. As if being naked and crazy weren't enough. Okay? He's scared because he's been out in the wilderness. So all of those things, Jesus does a maneuver in which he demonstrates in so many ways how he's willing to cross boundaries. And the first thing we hear is he comes from the predominantly Hebrew town of Galilee and crosses the Sea of Galilee to get to the predominantly Greek or non-Hebrew town of the Gerasenes. And there he's already kind of made that transition, and the first guy who meets him is this crazy, wacky, possessed dude, who basically says, recognizes him, even in the midst of everything that's going on, as the Messiah. And instead of saying, like everyone else, oh, I'm hearing from the wacky dude, he demonstrates he wants relationship by saying, hey, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name? Crazy, The name is such a big thing in Hebrew spirituality and in Christian spirituality. It's how God knows us. It represents how God invites us. So he's invited into a relationship. And then he gets the name. He realizes there's lots of demons in there. Wow. And he goes, I want to know you all. They go, no, we don't want to know you. That's horrible. That's awful. And so he has actually compassion on the demons. Because they say, don't throw us into this. And he says, okay. Where do you want to go? We see those pigs. Oh, it'd be so great to be a pig. They lie around in the mud and they eat whatever they want. Tell me one of them. He says, okay. And he gives information. He has compassion even on the demons. But it was a huge mistake. Huge mistake. They tried to lead the pigs so hard, they go running off into the Sea of Galilee, fall off the cliff and die. Oops. But Jesus gave them that choice to live that way. And he didn't judge them at all. He never said, you're bad, you're condemned, you're going to die. He said, I'll give you the freedom to choose how you will live. And if you will either be in a relationship with me or not. And they went on. So the pigs, the demons are sent. That's another sending, right? Jesus sends himself there. The demons are sent then into the pigs. The pigs send themselves off the cliff. The response is the swineherds go, ha! I won't even say what I think they think. And they're like, well, they send themselves as a result into the towns, into the country, to tell this story about what just happened. And the people then are sent to Jesus, so they figured out they were going to send themselves to go see what just happened. So lots of sending and going. And then when they realize that this miracle and amazing thing has happened, what do? They go, you made a change. That's right. You changed everything. You changed how we relate to the sky. You changed him. You're freaking us out because you have the power to transform everything. And we don't want to be transformed. Get out of here. And they sent Jesus away. They exorcised him out of their community. They do not want to know God. Why? Because we all are cooler than you. That's the message. We're better than you. Get out of here. And he doesn't say, you all are horrible. I'm going to send plagues and locusts and things, kill y'all in the sunrise. He doesn't do that. He says, okay, and he gets in the boat, and he goes away. They don't want a relationship with him. He wanted it with them. He says, okay, I'll do what you ask me. And he goes away. And here's this guy, here's another sending. Because this guy who's had this amazing experience wants to go with him. Wants to be an apostle. But that's not what his invitation by God is. He says, no, dude, you've been hanging out in the wilderness. You've been having a crazy life. Now you get to have a real one. Go home. Make a home. Have a life. Be with people. Be in your community. Have some joy. Go home. And he's like, okay. And he goes, but why are you doing that? The response that God or Jesus is asking for in return is go and share what has happened to you, what God has done for you. Just go and share that. And the guy does, but you know what he does? Instead of saying, look what God's done for me, look what God's done, he says, look what Jesus has done. Because he gets it. He sees that Messiah that he's been in and will be in relationship with. Now here's the thing. When I read this as an Episcopal priest, and I'm kind of going, I think Episcopalians are really good at being gathered to God. Right? We like church. We like it. We like all this stuff. We like it. We want our candles lit, our bell rung, the songs sung. We like it. We like to be gathered. And we like and appreciate, emotionally and spiritually, what's going on in the symbol of baptism and the invitation to be transformed and to transform ourselves, our ways of thinking and being. That is part of our spiritual practice. We like that as Episcopalians. But the thing that we kind of go, is that invitation to be sent and to share with others our experiences of how God has touched and transformed our lives. That part, we're like, oh God, that's wrong. I mean, you might as well say, go out there in your underwear. We really don't want to do that. And yet, that is the response of the faithful worshiper, not the false worshiper, identified in the Old Testament. The faithful worshiper is modeled by this guy, this marginalized man who is returned to human society, returned to loving relationship with God, healed and clothed with Christ. That faithful worshiper goes out and shares with people how God has changed or transformed his life. Am I asking you to go out and testify to people? No. Because what Christ is inviting is that gratitude that you feel, share that. It's a lot easier to go out and share what you're grateful for. Phew. Share that. What are you grateful for that you attribute to the action and